Hello and welcome to a special programme here on France 24, looking at how people from around the world have been living through the coronavirus era. Paris is one of the most vibrant and multicultural cities in the world, home to large diasporas from North and Sub-Saharan Africa, Asia and elsewhere. And I myself know it, when you have strong links to more than one country, you have a different perspective, a unique take on world events. So how have members of the diaspora here been coping with COVID? First, we'll take you to meet Adama Paris. She's a renowned fashion designer and stylist, and usually would be travelling all the time between France and Senegal. But amid the pandemic, she's been forced to adapt.
We're mid-photo shoot in this light and airy showroom in the east of Paris, promoting clothes and objects made in Africa. This boutique belongs to Adama Paris, an African fashion icon originally hailing from Senegal. A dynamic businesswoman who used her imagination to work around the constraints of COVID.
It boosted my creativity. I created this concept of lockdown runway shows. The idea was that everyone at home could do a fashion show like we did, to display our creations and continue promoting our clothes and the models. We did it all via the internet.
This year, Adama Paris is organising an online version of Senegal's Dakar Fashion Week. For the designer, new technology is very useful, but can't replace face-to-face communication.
Africa is all about contact. It's all about negotiating, going to the market, choosing your fabric, coming to the Adama. That's Africa. But Africa, like everywhere else, has had to change its way of life.
Adama Paris spent the beginning of the crisis in Senegal before flying back to France. She's proud of how Africa coped with the virus.
We've seen such advances and creativity in Africa, the kind that hadn't been seen for a long time. The world saw Senegal producing COVID tests for less than €1. Everyone could get tested. I think COVID made people more humane.
She's doubled down on creativity during this extremely testing time for businesses. But Adama can't wait to get back to her trick of disappearing from one continent to another.
The arts, and in particular live performances, are really suffering at the moment due to coronavirus restrictions. So how do you cope if you usually make your living as a musician? We went to meet the Colombian singer Nancy Murillo, not far from here, in the 19th arrondissement of Paris.
Nancy Murillo is used to performing in packed concert halls, but since France started lifting COVID restrictions, she's been getting a buzz from simply singing in parks.
You do what you can to help with the wait. But we do need to ask ourselves how performers can keep going, keep singing, dancing and making a living from their art.
Making a living was Nancy's challenge during lockdown. In her small apartment in the north of Paris, her artworks are everywhere. She's a singer, but also a painter and designer.
These are spoons that I made with a great deal of love. While I was making them, I was thinking, how can I keep earning money if I can't perform concerts anymore? And so I started making objects I could produce quickly and sell at small prices.
The coronavirus pandemic was also a source of inspiration for Nancy. She painted this work entitled COVID-19, The Last Supper, to reflect the fear and uncertainty of the period.
It's a time when we're asking ourselves a lot of questions. Where are we going? What's going to happen? Here among the characters, who's that? It's death. What I learned from this whole period is unity.
Nancy Murillo usually spends a chunk of her time in Colombia, even though her children and performing work are here in France.
That's my grandmother and I adore her. That's my father. We lost him not long ago, in November.
The coronavirus pandemic sparked mixed emotions for Nancy: fear, longing, nostalgia. Now she's impatient to share her incredible energy with the public once again.
If you've ever spent any time in France, you'll know just how important the food is here, especially the baguettes. But getting your daily bread in the midst of the coronavirus lockdown was a challenge, even at the highest levels of the state. Our team went to meet the Tunisian boulanger Rida Hader, who bakes for France's president and prime minister.
From French presidents to mayors of Paris, baker Rida Hader has had his photo taken with his fair share of politicians. In 2013, he won France's coveted Best Baguette Award and has been supplying the official residences of President and Prime Minister ever since.
They took me on to work with them, and it was a proud moment. The first president's gone, and there's a new one now, so maybe I'll stay for a second term, and then we'll see. Give it a touch. Can you hear it sing?
Rida arrived in France in 1986 and dreamed of becoming a mechanic, but ended up baking bread fit for presidents.
I don't sprinkle flour on my special breads because if they're wearing a dark suit, it will look dirty. You have to be very careful.
Rida may have perfected the traditional French baguette, but his first memory of the smell of freshly baked bread comes from his family home in Tunisia.
It was my mum who made the bread. I'm thinking of her today. She taught me you never know what will happen in times of war, but there will always be work for bakers. And it's like that with the corona epidemic too. There's still work.
Nevertheless, Rida's had to furlough staff and adapt workplace procedures during the COVID crisis. The stress of a job where he can't afford to slip up, added to by his concern for his family back home.
They're scared for us here in France, and I'm worried about my sisters and brother over there.
Rida heads out on a delivery to the Prime Minister's Matignon residence. With the roads quieter, there's now more time for reflection.
When you're working, you're always running after something, but you don't really know why. Now I'm saying no, slow down, look after your family, try to work and live differently.
The delivery done, then it's back to his baker shop. It's just 7 a.m. Rida may be rethinking life, but for now, the early starts continue.
The coronavirus pandemic has been a time of mourning for many people who've lost loved ones, but also a time of reflection about the legacies we leave behind. The renowned singer Idia from Kabylie in Algeria died recently from an unrelated illness, but it left his family and his fans contemplating his roots and his message at this particularly testing time. A glimpse of greenery just outside Paris, a little reminiscent of the Kabylie region of Algeria from where hailed the musician Idia, a star beloved of the Algerian diaspora. Idia's daughter shows us the attic in his home where he used to compose.
He wrote a lot of his pieces up here. I think it was 2 albums. He worked a great deal with his musicians up here. That's the guitar he played on stage.
Idia passed away right in the middle of the COVID pandemic.
We were very close. We would call each other every day. I found it very difficult that I couldn't come and see him because I caught coronavirus. But one of his fundamental principles, values that we're holding on to, is his humanism, his universalism. He was Kabyle, but he was a man of the world.
Idia's death during the coronavirus crisis upset many in the Algerian diaspora. Some couldn't accept that he wasn't buried in his birthplace.
It's true, there was a time when he wanted to be buried in Algeria next to his mother, but he changed his mind over time. I understand people might find that difficult, but I hope in time they'll accept Dad's decision, whether he's buried in France, in Paris, Algiers, or even Rio.
En France, à Paris, à Alger ou à Rio.
He was a world citizen. The world was his.
La terre lui appartient.
In this song entitled Death, Idir questioned what remains after people pass on. For the artist's daughter, there's no doubt he left behind a body of work which will continue to resonate far beyond Kabylie and Algeria.
And that's where we wrap up this special programme, Diasporas in the coronavirus era. We'll leave you with one of Idir's songs, performed by artists on opposite sides of the Mediterranean. Stay tuned to France 24.
Peuplé de cheveux longs, de grands lits et de musique, peuplé de lumière et peuplé de fous, la maison berbère, Mazali.